Hello, Kish family. In my first sermon as senior pastor here at Kish, I talked about COVID, and at the end of that, I listed 5 principles that we are going to follow here regarding how we as a church were going to go through the COVID situation. And one of those principles was communication, just that we would continually communicate with the church, kind of where we're at, and updates, and then open the doors for you all to communicate back with me or with church leadership, so that everyone can feel like we're in the know and understanding what's happening. So that is the reason why I'm sitting here in my awesome Amish-made rocker, doing my best Mr. Rogers impression today, is because I want to communicate with you. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently is that God has really been gracious to our church over the past year. Between COVID, pastoral transition, just all the possible landmines for divisiveness or disunity to show up. I feel like we've made it through so much of that and are at a decent place right here a year later. There's a risk that comes with that though, because what I don't want is for us to get complacent, and as we get towards the end of kind of how we're going to reintegrate back and what we're going to do to kind of put COVID in the rearview mirror, I think there's a possibility that we lose focus and kind of lose our graciousness to others and these kinds of things, and all of a sudden something pops up that is more troublesome because we just thought we were over it and we were done and we were ready to move on. And so I want to communicate about this kind of thing today, because I think that is a real possibility, and I want to, for myself and for everyone watching, to have the opportunity to really think about kind of who we are as a church and how we're going to go forward together. So I have 5 things in this video that I'd like to address pretty briefly. Here's the first one. Had discussions with elders, with deacons, with church staff about kind of when, and the timing seems really, really important when we decide to go back to one service, because you don't want to do it too soon, you don't want to do it too late. At this point, what we've decided is that we're not going to do it yet. And so what that means is that we expect to at least get through Easter and into mid to late April and reassess when we might go back to one service. I know, and I've had conversations with folks that say, I just can't wait for all of us to be together in the same space, and I 100% completely get that. And I just ask you to be patient as we still have some folks who haven't even been back to the first mask mandatory service or something like that yet. And we don't want to risk pushing them off by joining all together too soon. And so the plan is to reassess end of April, but I just wanted you to feel like you're in the know about that. The second point that I want to make is this. We are, however, kind of given the first point, we are, however, planning more in-person activities and things of that nature starting now. And so yesterday we actually had a lunch for seniors, about 20 here. Super great time together. On March the 28th, so in a couple of Sundays after the second service, we're planning on having like a sack lunch social. And all of these things I'm sort of envisioning in my head as something like a glimpse or a taste of heaven. Because heaven is about this marriage supper with, I assume, much better food than bag lunch PB&J sandwiches. But it's about this gathering together in joy and unity of people who are just so thankful to be in community and relationship together and that sort of thing. And so we want to provide opportunities for folks to get together. We are in discussions about opening up some more Sunday school options, probably during the first service time. So you'll hopefully hear more about that in the near future. But I just want to communicate for those of you who still are feeling some level of discomfort about being around other people. We're not doing this as a way of saying that you're wrong or that sort of thing, but we want to provide those opportunities for some who feel comfortable, and make sure that we do have the opportunity to build the relationships required to kind of be a community of people in our Kish family. And so you can look for more about that to happen soon. Number 3, I just want to talk for a minute. I've been having some conversations with folks who either have been watching online for a while, and what they've said to me in a couple instances recently is something like, it's really hard once you get in that routine to kind of wake up and have your PJs on and turn on church for a minute and watch it and then kind of go about the rest of your Sunday. It's hard to change out of that routine. And so I just want to acknowledge that I could see we're humans and we're creatures of habit. And so once we develop a habit, sometimes it's hard to break that habit. So I just want to acknowledge the challenge there. At the same time, I want to thank, I've been in other conversations with a few people who have been around, who have said, I've been communicating with my friends who are part of our church and saying, hey, I know you're out at Walmart and you're eating out, how are you feeling about coming back to church? And just providing an on-ramp for people, a place to encourage them, not that, you're only spiritual if you show up and sit in a pew on Sunday. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, if you want to be the kinds of folks, if you're watching this, who are encouraging others to think about when they might want to physically show back up at church, please do that. I think that always comes better from other church folks than from me, because I don't want to give off the impression that it's, Pastor Luke, the attendance police, is coming to get somebody and say that they're a terrible person because they didn't, haven't been in church and that sort of thing. So please, this is an all hands on deck sort of situation. So if you know of people who, you think might be at a place where they'd be ready to be back at church, I'd encourage you to reach out to them and in a loving and kind and helpful way. Okay. The next thing, I think we're at number 4, is that Easter is coming. And so you may have heard already that we can't, all the schools aren't letting any outside agencies or groups use the property. So we can't go to the elementary school like we have in the past. And that means that we're going to have our 2 Easter services here, 8:30 mask mandatory, 10 mask optional, like we've been doing. We are hoping, I was in discussion with Laura Kaufman, the new CM director, about providing nursery for the first service, which we haven't been doing, so that anybody who, that's a thing that would help them to be able to be here, would be available. Also, this year we are going to have a Good Friday service, which I'm really stoked about, because it's going to be an opportunity to reflect. And I think one of the beautiful things about the cross is that kind of experiencing and thinking through the sadness and death of Good Friday elevates the beauty and glory and joy of the resurrection on Easter. And so to do both of those things simultaneously on one day, it misses the point, which is, sadness followed by great, great, unbelievable joy. And so that's our hope. There's going to be a couple guest speaker types from our church that are not me, which I'm really excited about, and music and scripture reading and that sort of thing. That's 7 o'clock on April the 2nd, which is Good Friday. That might be a good time to think not only about, reintegrating or on-ramps for people who have been away from church, but also to think about your friends, your family, people who don't know about Jesus, to say, hey, you can come to either Good Friday or one of the Easter services to come and experience with us the joy of worshiping Jesus. Lastly, one of the other principles that I gave way back in this sermon on COVID in August was that, and the main and first principle was that we want to have a Christ-centered focus here as a church. And so obviously Easter and kind of the sermon series that we've been in Matthew, all of this stuff ties into that. But another thing that's coming up quickly is the idea of coming together as a church and reading through the entire New Testament collectively. And that's going to start April 16th, which is the day after Tax Day. And that will be from then on till the rest of 2021. And we can get through the entire New Testament together as a church. And what I don't want that to be about is like a New Year's resolution, where we are into it and it goes gung-ho for 3 weeks and then it kind of falls and crashes and burns. So what we want to do as a church is to put some things in place to support your reading of that. And so we're working on kind of a couple things that will be out this coming Sunday, as far as ways to support, as also as far as having people like officially sign up to do this. So we have a list of people who are doing it. I'm hoping for something in the hundreds, 100, 200 folks that are reading the New Testament together and learning about Christ and his mission so that we can have a Christ-centered focus here as a church. And so you can expect to hear more about that on Sunday. All right, I'd like to conclude by saying this. This video is an attempt to communicate, It's not an attempt to say that, you need to have, like as if we're going to be doing great as a church if we get as many people on a Sunday to sit and warm a seat in our building. That's not the case at all. The case is this, that we have sometimes think, my vision for what I'd love to see happen at Kish is so huge that it's going to take much more than just people sitting here to do that. And so what we want to be is a family of people, or a community of people who loves each other, has joy and fellowship, and just delights in being around each other, just like a big old family reunion, and then who also shares in that the joy and the goodness from the gospel transforming our lives, overflows and just pours out into the community, into the people around us, with the goodness of how God has came to redeem and to love his people here on earth. And so I think reading the Bible, reading through the New Testament is a big part of that. Participating or being engaged in the mission of church is a big part of that. And there's some people who've been watching online who've been doing tremendous things as far as their engagement in what's happening at Kish. And so engagement is more important than attendance, that's for sure. It's kind of like PD said a couple years ago, and so if you've been around for a while, you might recognize these words. I very vividly remember a sermon maybe like 3 years ago where he said, our goal is not to go to church, but to be the church. And so I want to communicate that that's still our goal and our mission. We're still going to keep online live streaming available forever as far as I'm concerned. That's not going to go away anytime soon, but we do want to provide on-ramps for those who might have, in some ways sort of drifted away over this past year, so that everybody has the opportunity to be part of what God is doing here at Kish. So, sorry I got a little preachy there at the end. I do get pretty excited about this sort of thing. But again, if you have anything you want to ask or communicate about, questions, ways you want to get involved, all that kind of stuff, we have things happening, and it seems very exciting to me. So if you want to get involved in that kind of stuff, please reach out. We love you, and God bless. Thank you for watching.